The throne glittered like eternity itself, but behind its light seethed a family war. In 1953, when the young Elizabeth prepared to wear the crown of empire, the palace was not a sanctuary. It was a battlefield. Two forces moved against each other in silence. Her mother, the Dowager Queen, the guardian of the old world, and her husband, Prince Philip, the restless sailor determined to drag royalty into the modern age. Between them stood a 27-year-old woman who had sworn to serve her people, yet found herself serving peace between her mother and her husband. This is the story of the secret war of Buckingham Palace. When King George VI died in February 1952, Britain mourned a good king and discovered the fragility of its dynasty. The Second World War still echoed through every rationed street and blackened wall. The nation needed continuity, something stable to believe in again. The Queen Mother believed she was that continuity. Her husband's death turned her into a living symbol of duty, a widow wrapped in public adoration. She did not intend to fade into the background. She intended to guard the crown she had rebuilt after Edward VI's abdication. But the new husband of the new queen did not share her faith in tradition. Prince Philip had seen war and machinery. He was young, decisive, impatient. To him, the monarchy must modernize or die. He wanted efficiency, communication, light, a palace that functioned like a ship. He wanted to sweep away the cobwebs of custom that smothered Buckingham's halls. He was, in every sense, a man from the 20th century surrounded by people still living in the 19th. From the first meeting, the old court regarded him with suspicion. They saw a foreigner, a Greek-born prince of uncertain background, a man whose sisters had married German aristocrats, whose accent and humor felt continental. To the guardians of Windsor, he was an intruder. To the Queen Mother, he was a threat. Too loud, too modern, too unpredictable. She had saved the monarchy once by making it look safe, domestic, and impeccably English. She would not let her daughter's husband gamble that image for the sake of innovation. The young queen was caught in the pull of two gravities. Her mother stood for the old empire of church and ceremony. Her husband represented the age of jet engines, television, and science. Elizabeth understood both. But in 1952, she was barely more than a girl, freshly orphaned, newly sovereign, still learning that love and leadership do not mix. To keep peace, she said little and listened to both. That silence would define her reign. Philip's frustrations began almost immediately. The new queen's advisors, her father's men, treated him as decoration. When he tried to reorganize the household, they smiled politely and ignored him. When he proposed new communications inside the palace, he was told it was not the royal way. He suggested radios instead of messengers, walkie-talkies instead of footmen. Courtiers laughed. Letters carried by hand were a matter of dignity, not practicality. Philip called it madness. They called it tradition. Meanwhile, the Queen Mother still lived inside Buckingham Palace, occupying her old apartments. For Philip, it was suffocating. He had moved his young family into a building where every hallway still whispered her name. Servants who once obeyed him as the Queen's consort now bowed to her as the royal matriarch. At night, the palace seemed divided by more than corridors, divided by time itself. One wing smelled of the old empire, roses and dust. The other smelled of ink and electricity, the new age waiting to begin. If you want more forgotten truths hiding behind royal ceremony, remember to subscribe. Every week, we reveal another story buried beneath the crown. Philip wanted to remain at Clarence House, the smaller residence he and Elizabeth had made a home. He even wrote a memorandum arguing they should stay there and use Buckingham only for official duties. It was dismissed within hours. Winston Churchill, now Prime Minister again, insisted the monarch must live in the Palace of Kings. Elizabeth obeyed. Philip seethed. Once again, the will of tradition crushed his logic. It was not only walls and furniture that frustrated him, it was names. Every dynasty carries a name. Every husband gives his children one. But when Philip tried to pass on his, he was told no. The royal house would remain Windsor, not Mountbatten. To him, it was a denial of identity. To the Queen Mother, it was protection. The family could not risk appearing foreign. When the Queen signed the order, Philip muttered that he was nothing but a bloody amoeba, the only man in Britain forbidden to give his name to his children. In that moment, he felt the cost of marrying the crown. The Queen Mother saw his anger and read it as arrogance. She had lived through the abdication crisis and knew how easily passion could threaten stability. She called him impulsive, headstrong, dangerously like Edward VIII. Philip saw her as manipulative, clinging to influence through charm and pity. Each thought the other the real danger to Elizabeth's reign. And both were right, in their way. When plans for the coronation began, the conflict sharpened into open strategy. To the Queen Mother, the ceremony had to be a mirror of George VI, a seamless continuation. To Philip, it should signal rebirth. He wanted cameras, helicopters, and technology. She wanted lace, choirs, and incense. Both claimed to act for Elizabeth, but both were fighting for control over what the monarchy would look like to the world. Philip was named head of the Coronation Committee, but it was an empty title. Real authority rested with the Duke of Norfolk, the same man who had arranged the last coronation and intended to repeat it, line for line. Philip's ideas were politely ignored. When he inspected Commonwealth troops by helicopter, Churchill was outraged. To him, the royal family belonged on horseback, not in the air. The message was clear. Innovation was insolence. The Queen Mother worked her influence through image. She had spent years crafting the royal fairy tale with designer Norman Hartnell and photographer Cecil Beaton. They had made her look both regal and tender, a living symbol of English virtue. Now she would use them again for her daughter's coronation. Philip wanted the younger, livelier photographer Baron, his friend from his wilder days, a man of humor and modern style. The Queen Mother vetoed him. Beaton would photograph the Queen, Hartnell would design her gown. The monarchy's face would remain her creation. In private, Philip mocked the palace as a museum. But he could not mock the power of appearance. He knew that image was destiny, and the Queen Mother owned it. Every portrait, every newspaper headline, every silk glove and perfect smile carried her signature. She was not the Queen, but she still commanded the stage. He was the husband, yet only a supporting character in her production. Then came the argument that would decide the shape of the monarchy for the next century. The question of television. The BBC wanted to broadcast the coronation live, to let the people witness history. Churchill and the courtiers recoiled. It was sacred ritual, they said, not theater. To show it on television would expose the mystery that kept the crown divine. The Queen Mother agreed completely. Philip did not. He saw the cameras as salvation. If the monarchy could be seen, it could be understood. If it could be understood, it might survive. The BBC leaked the story of their rejection. Public outrage erupted. Polls showed overwhelming support for broadcasting. The Queen hesitated. The pressure grew. Philip argued that the people had already changed, and the crown must change with them. Finally, Elizabeth relented. The coronation would be televised. It was Philip's one great victory against the old guard. June 2nd, 1953. Rain brushed the windows of Westminster Abbey. Inside, history repeated itself in gold and candlelight. The Queen moved alone through the nave, pale and composed, her robe trailing like a river of light. The cameras rolled. 27 million Britons watched from their homes. For 10 million, it was the first time they had ever seen television. The world saw a new monarch, but it did not see the exhaustion, the tension, the silent battle behind her calm eyes. Philip stood apart, an attendant lord in naval uniform. He had shaped the logistics of the day, yet held no authority within it. He had fought to modernize a ceremony that treated him as decoration. When the crown touched Elizabeth's head, He bowed, a soldier saluting a symbol that had already outmaneuvered him. The Queen Mother, radiant in white, watched from the front row. Her daughter shone. Her influence endured. The monarchy appeared united. Only the walls knew the truth. After the ceremony, the family gathered for official photographs. Beaton arranged the group like a painter, composing a final portrait of empire. Philip grew impatient, correcting angles, muttering that it should be done faster. Beaton recorded later that the Duke's smile frightened him. Perhaps it was fatigue. Perhaps it was resentment that even on this day of victory, he was a spectator. To the public, the coronation was perfection. To those within the palace, it was a truce. The Queen Mother soon left Buckingham for Clarence House, but not before ensuring every tradition survived intact. Philip was free to rule his own household, yet the institution itself remained hers. He had opened the palace to cameras, but the crown still spoke in her language. The televised coronation made the monarchy more visible than ever before. It also bound it forever to the gaze of the world. From that moment, the royal family could never again exist in private. The light Philip invited in would one day expose their griefs, their scandals, their fractures. But in 1953, none of them could see that far. They only knew that the people were watching, and the people were pleased. The Queen Mother, relieved of duty but not of influence, reinvented herself once more as national grandmother. Philip turned his energy toward modernization projects, charities, and travel. They rarely crossed each other directly again, but the cold space between them remained. He had tried to turn a dynasty toward the future. She had anchored it in the past. Both had succeeded. Both had failed. For Elizabeth, the cost of peace was silence. She would spend her reign balancing the two ghosts that shaped her throne, the husband who demanded progress and the mother who demanded permanence. Every decision she made would echo that early struggle. The palace war ended without victory, yet its legacy defines the monarchy still. The Queen Mother's obsession with image kept the institution untarnished for a generation. Philip's insistence on modernization ensured it survived in the age of technology. The monarchy endured because both were right, and because one woman bore the weight of both. In the years that followed, Philip would gain small concessions, committees to lead, causes to champion. But he never forgot those first humiliations. Nor did he forget that on the day of the coronation, when the world watched his wife crowned, he was the only man in the realm without a name of his own. The Queen Mother lived long enough to see his reforms succeed and to see her own image fade into nostalgia. Yet she never apologized. To her, she had protected the crown. To him, she had imprisoned it. They both died believing they had saved it. What the public saw was a fairy tale: grace, duty, continuity. What history remembers is the cost of that illusion, the silent feud that shaped the modern monarchy. It was not fought with armies or decrees, but with influence, silence, and charm. One believed the crown should never change. The other believed change was its only hope. And the young queen, bound to both, carried their conflict in every decision for the next 70 years. The coronation of 1953 remains one of the grandest spectacles in British history. But beneath its music and jewels lies the echo of a quieter truth. The crown may rest on one head, yet it is always surrounded by unseen hands. Hands that guide, restrain, and protect it. Hands that belong not to enemies, but to family. And in that eternal struggle, between light and shadow, old and new, the monarchy endures. Because in the House of Windsor, power is never taken. It is inherited, disguised, and endlessly disputed, even between those who love each other most. History is rarely polite, and neither are we. Subscribe to the channel for more tales of power, decay, and the ghosts that still rule from behind the throne.